Hey everybody, welcome back to The Stuff of Legend. My name is D-Lo and I've got another video for you guys. I am really excited because I'm going to be talking about Captain Marvel, and I saw the film on Friday night and I got a lot to say about that. If you guys already got a chance to see my non-spoiler review, this is going to be my full spoiler-filled review. So you guys, if you haven't seen the film, I would highly recommend you go check out my non-spoiler review, and then that'll be good for you to hold you over until you can see the movie, then come back and see this, because this one, I don't want to ruin the film experience for you. I had a great time watching the movie. I really liked it. I thought it was a good film, and I'm going to talk in detail about that. But if you guys haven't seen the film, I'm going to warn you one more time. Do not watch this review until you have seen Captain Marvel in its fullest. So please be aware of that. This is the last warning, and we are live. So now we are back. I'm super excited to be doing this. I've been wanting to do this. I've been processing all my thoughts, and I am just really grateful that I'm able to do this with you. Let me just get my camera focused one more time. There we go. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about Captain Marvel, and we're not talking about Shazam Captain Marvel from DC. We're talking about Captain Marvel from Marvel Comics, which is Carol Danvers. Now there's a lot to break down here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out first with the good, okay? And again, this is going to be full spoiler warning. Last call. You better back out if you haven't seen this film, because I'm about to start giving you guys some serious details. All right, that's it. You've had your warning. Everyone who joins in now, I'm going to go ahead and leave this here, but I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. That way it can stay right here. All right, just like that. All right, so now I am really excited because I'm going to talk first about the good, right? What was good about Captain Marvel? The good thing about Captain Marvel, I'm going to start with, was the story. So it opens up, and it's got kind of like a fish, almost like a fish out of water. Like, there's moments with fish out of water. There's a lot of like buddy cop moments. There's a lot of just space wars, space romp kind of awesome, like high-paced action. There's a lot of kind of like I don't know what you would say. It feels like a war film at times, which is good. It feels like a war film at times, spy thriller. It's got a lot of fun things that fit into it, and I was surprised by how many different kinds of movie styles they were able to kind of shove into one film. Now, looking back on it, it does kind of find itself to be hard to describe when you try to describe what was Captain Marvel as far as what kind of film. Very difficult to answer that question. You can kind of say comic book movie, but that's not even a genre really, because that's kind of like what inspired the film, but that doesn't say what kind of film it actually is, right? Because Shazam is going to be a comic book film, but it's a comedy, you know, and then the Dark Knight is a comic book film, but it's not. It's really it's kind of like a crime thriller. That's kind of more or less what it is. But it's hard to define what Captain Marvel was. It was a lot of different things. Now, I will say I did like the different things that were in there. The space wars, the buddy cop, the superhero, the alien invasion, the fish out of water. There was a lot of things happening at once, and that was really cool. I actually did enjoy that. Some people didn't like that so much, how many different styles there were for making this film, but I did enjoy it. So I put that in my good category because it made it feel like nothing else in the MCU. No other film feels like Captain Marvel, and Captain Marvel doesn't feel like any other film really. It gets close to a couple of them, a couple of the other MCU films in feeling, but only for parts of the film. And that's what makes this one feel so unique, is that it has major like shifts in the way that the story tells. Some people aren't going to like that. So maybe that's not for you. I did actually enjoy it. Next up, I really liked the villains. I really liked the villains that were in there. The actors that played these villains were really good. There was Annette Bening was the Supreme Intelligence. Jude Law was Jan Rog, and he was not Captain Marvel. He wasn't Marvel, and we'll get to that. That's something that irked me a little bit, but I did like Jude Law in the role that he was playing with Jan Rog. That was good. And then next up, There was like Jaimin Hansu, and I forget what her name is, something Chang, but she was really good as Minerva. And then also, what was their name? Shoot, I keep forgetting the actors' names. Oh, Ben Mendelsohn. Ben Mendelsohn was easily my favorite character in the entire movie, and that was something that I was kind of anticipating. I had already shown you guys the Funko Pop videos. I was already really excited for the Skrulls, but I was very pleased that when I saw the film, it worked out that he was actually my favorite character, as far as his presence, his performance, the way the character played out in the film was really cool. The makeup was amazing. The CGI at times for the different, creatures and aliens and whatnot were really, really good. I loved the Skrulls. That was what I really wanted when I was going into the film, and that's what I got when I was there. That's what I remember when I came out. It was so good. The Skrulls were just amazing. The Kree was a lot of fun as well. I really liked them too. There was a lot of good battle scenes involving the Kree and the Skrulls. I loved it. So those were really good. The villains were interesting. The villains were compelling, and they were believable. I liked that. Next, after that, I really enjoyed the costumes. And I mentioned the makeup before, but the costumes and the makeup, whoever did that deserves some type of recognition. I don't think they should win an Oscar or anything, or like any kind of, but they should definitely be considered for nomination, because especially because of Ben Mendelsohn and the other Skrulls that were there, they looked really freaking good. And I really loved the costumes that were there. I love what they did with Brie Larson's costume. At one point, they were allowing her to change the colors and just let her kind of try on different colors for the suits. That was really good. There was a lot of fun. There was a lot of fun, a lot more fun in this film than I thought there would be. And I really did enjoy that. Next up, visual effects, and specifically the de-aging of Samuel L. Jackson, who did a great job in the film, was amazing. But honestly, like, it was the de-aging effect that they did was so good that you didn't even notice what was like, that they were actually de-aging him. It just looked like you were watching a movie from the 90s with Sam Jackson in it. And if you're making a movie that's supposed to take place in the 90s, it's helpful that you're not brought out of character by noticing that the character that's playing a guy, I don't know, in his 30s or something, is actually 70 years old. Sam Jackson is no spring chicken. He's getting up there in age, but he fooled everyone in this movie. He was so good, so youthful, so like fun, and it was just great. He did such a good job. And it was mostly because we weren't thinking about how old he was. They de-aged him so perfectly. And they've been working on that since, what was it? Captain America Civil War, with the de-aging process that they showed with the barf technology from Iron Man in the beginning of the film, when he's showing off like to the MIT students or whatever. And then he gives them all a scholarship. He was using that technology to de-age himself. We all were like, oh my gosh, that looked so real. Robert Downey Jr. looked so young. They actually did that for an entire movie with Sam Jackson, and it worked. So that was really, really cool. I really liked that. That was a huge plus. Next, I thought that it fit into the MCU, the early MCU, really well. The way that the film felt was, it was kind of like a cosmic story that wasn't Guardians of the Galaxy. It didn't feel like Guardians, really, but it did feel cosmic for half of the film. And then the other half being on Earth, but still had a lot of like alien involvement and that kind of thing. It did feel very grounded for half the film, and it felt very cosmic for half the film. Like, they did a good job of making it have different styles and tones, like I mentioned in the beginning of this video. But I think that the way that they were able to take some of these like Easter eggs, like for instance, the Project Pegasus, which had been alluded to since the first Avengers film. In the first Avengers film, when they're in the beginning, Loki's attacking, or the SHIELD base is starting to collapse. Everyone's hustling to get out of the Avengers Tower, or I'm sorry, not the Avengers Tower, but the SHIELD base. On the wall, there was a few things that were there alluding to some of the various projects throughout the MCU, and one of them was the Pegasus Project, and it was Project Pegasus. And they had been throwing that Easter egg out like on dossiers and in like Stark files and whatnot. and Stark. I think it was, I don't remember if it was Age of Ultron or Iron Man 3 or something like that, but there was a point where he was talking to Jarvis, and he said, get me every file we have on Project Pegasus, and he named a couple of other projects, but one of them being Pegasus. They've been planting these Easter eggs throughout the MCU, and they go way back to the first, Avengers film. It felt really nice that not just with that instance, but with a lot of other things, they were bringing this all together. It was all tying into Captain Marvel. So they've been planning something in this direction since back then, and specifically Captain Marvel for many years now. I think it was 2010 when they first announced they were talking about doing Captain Marvel. And, it's been a long time coming, but it's here, it's now, and we finally gotten the film, and it is a good film. And I'm going to get into some more of that. As you guys can see, we're still doing the good. So we're still on that part here. But let me go ahead and talk next about, so if it fits really well into the early MCU with tone and with Easter eggs, there's a lot of things, for instance, I'll talk about this again. I'll flip-flop about this. But, there was a couple of things they did with, Fury's eye, and, answering some of the questions that were in the MCU. How did Fury lose his eye? Was it a scroll? Was it what was it? And we now know, this is, because this is the spoiler details video, that it was Goose the cat. And in the film, I laughed. I was like, wow. It was like a wow moment. Now that I'm out and I've had time to think about it, it's yeah, it kind of undermines a lot of what was said, right? Because Sam Jackson was saying that, last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye. He told that to Captain America. In what was that, the Winter Soldier? But he it was actually just him playing around with the cat, which was not a cat. I think the name is a flurkin, if I'm remembering that correctly. But it's a very dangerous creature that resembles a Earth cat. And anyway, this scratch on the eye, it gets infected, he loses the eye. Those kinds of things are weird, a little quirky, but it does tie in with the MCU. So that was one thing in the film. Before I had a chance to really sleep on it, think about it, it was something that was just a good laugh. It was a good laugh in the experience. So first time through, I really enjoyed it. Now that I'm out, I'm kind of criticizing and thinking it over. Why'd they do that? It could have been something epic or, whatever, but it's okay. Marvel is known for having some good humor sprinkled throughout, some cheesy humor sprinkled throughout. And that was one of those things where it's kind of yeah, it could have been something, but honestly, it's not ruining the film for me. There are other things though that are really sticking as thorns in my side, which I'll get to when I'm doing the bad or the confusing. So for me, that type of humor was actually really good, and it worked for me in the film. I laughed. I wasn't brought out of the film by it. It was good. Now, next up, I'll say that the Skrull and the Kree were mostly very comic book accurate. Now, I say mostly because on both ends, there was one thing that would come to my mind for each of those. So for the Kree, I was particularly, taken back by their choice of how to do the Supreme Intelligence. And it wouldn't have bothered me so much with the appearance, because they did say in the film, the Supreme Intelligence is it appears to you as whatever is a memory in your head. It appears as something you'll be familiar with, and that's kind of what they did to avoid just putting this big ugly green face on the screen, which honestly I think could have worked. They could have done a big ugly green face, but having Annette Bening do that part was pretty cool. Now, there's another part of that I'm very disappointed with. I will put either down here or down here towards the middle and end of this video, and I'll circle back to that. Other than the way they depicted the Supreme Intelligence, and one other thing I'll get to at the other part, I thought the Kree was depicted very, very accurately, especially by the story. As soon as they started the marketing, and they were he's so the Skrulls are the bad guys, and the Kree are noble warriors. She's heroes, noble warrior heroes, and they're painting it out, and all the marketing's like the Skrulls are the bad guys and the Kree are the heroes. It's that doesn't, in the comics, that's not how it was, but it was how the Kree saw it. And that, as a comic book fan, I knew immediately. I was like, I think the Skrulls are going to be the good guys, and the Kree are the great deceivers, which makes sense because it's like the opposite of what you would expect. One of them is the deceitful, shape-shifting aliens that invade Earth under the cover of lies and deception, and the other one has had little to no involvement whatsoever with Earth, right? So one of them looks like the bad guy right off the bat, and the other one doesn't seem to be bad. It makes perfect sense that they would be the opposite, and that Captain Marvel's motivation for trying to figure out who she is finding out that the people she's been warring against are not who they've said they are, and they're really just trying to survive against the people she's working with, who have been fighting an unjust war and causing all this chaos. So I'm going to refocus my camera. Boom. Boom. Done. Okay. Do you guys like how my logo is like disappearing a little bit because it's all reflective and it's flipping out my my green screen, my filters? Yeah, I like that. So that's kind of fun. It makes it look like it's super, which is nice. All right, so next up, as far as good things that are good about Captain Marvel, all right, things that I really liked was specifically, I think that Brie Larson together with Sam Jackson was really good. I think that them together had a really strong dynamic, and it was very enjoyable, and they bounced off of each other so well. Their sense of humor works well together, and together I think that they both knocked it out of the park. Any scene that both of them were in where they were interacting with each other was really, really solid, and I liked it. I liked that a lot. So they had a good on-screen dynamic. Next, I'll say that the supporting cast was excellent, and I'm going to go ahead and, so that I don't get the names wrong, so I really loved Jude Law, Sam Jackson, Ben Mendelsohn, Gemma Chan. Lee Pace was really good as Ronan the Accuser. Now, I watched John Campia's review before I had seen the film, and it wasn't his spoiler review, but it was just his non-spoiler. And he mentioned that Ronan the Accuser has like little to no involvement in the film. Like literally it's nothing. And I will say that's not accurate. Ronan the Accuser does in fact have a role. He's got a purpose, and he plays a part in the story. And he has, I think, not that many, but probably I would say like 3 or 4 scenes where he actually does talk and have lines. And he, you know, it's a small role, but it is nonetheless a supporting role. It's not as big as even Gemma Chan's or Lashana Lynch or Annette Bening even, but it's close. And he did a good job. I really liked him. I thought that he did a good job of playing a Ronan the Accuser that was not yet the radical that he was when we saw him in Guardians of the Galaxy. I thought that he did a good job conveying that he was on pace to get there. That was cool. Annette Bening did a good job. But I'm going to get to why I'm pissed off about that a little bit later when I get to the bad and the confusing. So Lashana Lynch as Maria Rambeau. She did a really good job. Now, that one was bittersweet because there were scenes where Brie Larson's Carol Danvers and Lashana Lynch's Maria Rambeau had to be together, and they were like trying to catch up, and Maria Rambeau was trying to fill in the gaps of Carol Danvers' memory, and it was really emotional. Like Lashana Lynch was really bringing emotion to the movie, and there was a moment where she was talking about how like they were best friends, and she was there when she gave birth to her daughter, and there was no man there for her, and she was on her own, and she was trying to put herself through school and work and all this kind of stuff. That how Carol Danvers was there for her, and she started crying, and it was very powerful emotionally, and I was really, really blown away by how much I was able to connect and feel with Lashana Lynch's character. Lashana Lynch did a really good job. I was really impressed by her. So that was good. I hope you like that. When you guys see the film, you be looking for that. I'm going to talk more about that scene as well when we get to the next part. But anyway, Rune Temte, I think that's how you say his name. He played Bronchar. He was really good. He only had a couple of speaking lines, but it was good nonetheless. Robert Kaczynski, I think I know who he played, and I think it was a Skrull, but he was supposedly in the film as well, and I don't recall him really being there. Colin Ford was in there as supposedly Steve Danvers. I think he must have played like her dad or something. I don't know what that was. And there's like the cast of Captain Marvel was just really good. The supporting cast was awesome. So that's all I really had to say for that one. Brie Larson I thought was likable. I thought she was funny at times. I thought she was at times charming. I thought she did a good job, especially in the scenes with Sam Jackson. It was a fun action space romp, which I'm always down for. And there was a few whoa moments, like where you were watching the film and then, oh my gosh, that was crazy, or whoa, that's huge, or oh my gosh, that's insane, I didn't see that coming, or what a plot twist. There was a few of those things. And with that, like towards the end, if you guys, I'm obviously assuming you've already seen this film, but that to me was something that I was blown away with how many times they were able to wow me, especially with I'll say Ben Mendelsohn and Jude Law. That was really good. They both had moments like that where you were taken back and like, oh my gosh, that's wow. I'm emotionally impacted by that, or oh my gosh, that's a huge surprise, or dude, did you see that action? Like that's crazy. Amazing action scenes. Though there was a lot of really good whoa moments throughout Captain Marvel, and I really appreciated that. My favorite of which, since this is a spoiler review, was definitely the part with like towards the end where you see the flashbacks, like in the trailer. She just crashed in the ship, and then Ben Mendelsohn's Talos pulls the gun out and he's about to fire. He goes with the ray gun. But towards the end, the plot twist activates, and then you realize the deception, and that was like the best to me. That was like the dude. Like, first of all, I knew it was gonna happen, but the way that they made it happen on screen was really powerful, and I liked that. So there was good, really solid moments of powerful emotional connection between you as an audience member and Brie Larson. It just wasn't all the way through. So I will say, lastly, for the good, is the Goose the Cat was awesome, super cool. I really liked what they did with that, and the surprise moments, and some of the fun reveals where he's an alien, and like the alluding to that with Talos, like where Sam Jackson's holding the cat up, and he's like, "What? Are you afraid of cats?" And he's like, "That's not a cat." He's like, "Get that thing away from my face," like just terrified. It was really, really fun. I liked that. I love what they did. And I was a huge fan of the cat. I like the cat. I'm not even a cat guy. I don't even like cats, but that was really fun. I liked what they did there. So that's it for the good. So now let's get into the bad. Okay, so let's get into the bad. I'm gonna switch it up. All right, so first up in the bad, the movie opens up. It's got some like flashbacks. It's got some kind of storytelling, backstory a little bit, and then it jumps into some action scenes, right? The action scenes, there was like 2 or 3 of these action scenes where the lighting, for the actual lighting, was so dark and so bad that you couldn't tell what was actually happening in the scene. It was so bad that like, okay, so like take the screen here. I'm going to take this thing away. But you like this much of the screen is covered with like awesome epic light show, which you should be able to see, but you can't because it's this close to you. And then somewhere over here, you can see like an arm and a shoulder of the guy that's getting like blasted or whatever. And it's like, it was so close up, and it was so in your face, and it was so like poorly lit that only the blasts of energy could be seen. No, you couldn't tell who was getting hit. You couldn't tell like who was fighting who. And it was so bad that you could sit there and rewind it and watch it 10 times and still feel like I don't know what just happened, and I don't even know who was fighting who. There was a couple of scenes where the fight scenes could have been glorious, and they were not, because of bad lighting and bad cinematography choices. So there was, and there was plenty of good fight scenes that were really solid. There was 3 or 4 major scenes where there was action, and you didn't get to see much because they relied so much on shaky cam and like blasting lights and stuff, and it was just not like, it wasn't good. It wasn't well done, and that's the problem. So for the bad, the first thing I'll say, poor lighting at times. So 3 out of, I forget how many fight scenes. There were probably like 7, 8. No, probably more. Probably like 8 fight scenes or something like that. Like good fight scenes. 3 of them were really hard to watch because of poor lighting, too close up, shaky cam like to the max, and those 3 things right out the gate are my first complaint. And that's, I think, almost everybody's complaint about Captain Marvel initially. So that, I think, was really, really a huge bummer. But that is not the only thing. So as far as number 4 for the bad was, there just wasn't enough sympathy for Carol Danvers. I mean, she starts out and like you see a montage, like they say in entertainment that it's better to show, don't tell. So they want you to show them through the cinematics what is happening, why you should feel for this character, what they've had to overcome, what they are overcoming, and then like watch them go through this hero's journey. And Captain Marvel doesn't have a hero's journey. Captain Marvel just has a mission. And her mission is very much, I just don't know who I am. I need to find who I am. And it's like a lot of people can connect with that idea, but you have to have something to make us feel compelled and like connect with this character, because most of us haven't suffered from amnesia. So we have to then go into our minds and be like, okay, how do I identify with this in my life? Like, how do I feel like I don't know who I am? Like literally not know who I am? Or is it more of like a figurative type of thing? And then if so, can you please show me something that connects that for me and the character? Because I'm not really feeling that. And it just didn't do it for me. I didn't really feel any connection to Captain Marvel like you do with Steve Rogers, like you do with Iron Man, like you do with, even when Natasha Romanoff was sharing her story to Clint Barton and they were talking back and forth in Avengers, you connected with her. And in that moment, everyone was like, gosh, like, why can't we hear the backstory of her and Clint Barton? Like, why can't we get more of that? That would be really great. But we don't get any kind of real connection with Brie Larson. It's like they make one joke, like they show a bunch of misogyny in the Air Force. And I've never been to the Air Force, so who knows? But it's like they're like, there's a reason why they call it a cockpit, or something like that. And it's just like they're just hating on her because she's a girl, but they're in there being like the most savage test pilots testing alien aircraft. It's like, don't you have the most like crazy cool job in the entire Air Force? Like, isn't that like the best you could do? Like, I don't know. I understand what they were trying to do there. I just didn't connect with it, and neither did my wife. My wife freaking hated it, but she enjoyed the film, like half of the film. But she doesn't. Even she told me when she walked out, she's all, "I wish they had gotten Catherine Winnick for Captain Marvel." Or she started naming people that was like, I wish they'd gotten this person, or this person would have been good, because you just don't connect. And I don't think that's necessarily Brie Larson's fault. I think that the story didn't allow her to have that much of an arc, because she started like totally powerful, totally equipped to take on anything that would have come her way in the entire story. The whole way through, all the way to the end, she literally could have done everything with the exact same power level, the exact same capability she started with. In fact, she started so powerful that she could have taken out Jude Law in the beginning, but she didn't, because she was just like, we're just doing hand-to-hand combat. I'm not going to blast you. She had the ability to blast him the whole time. It's like, it's like there was no like, I'm relying on Kree weaponry, I've been trained, but then she discovers that she has the power later. That would have been really cool, unique. I mean, but she did need the powers for the story they wrote for her. And it, I'm not even mad that they did that per se, because like I did appreciate that she had the power throughout. It made for some good show, like action show and whatever. But I don't know, it just didn't do it for me. There wasn't enough connection. There wasn't enough of a journey. It wasn't like a story arc for the character or a hero arc, like a call to action, you know, the threshold she has to cross and this. It was just, no, I'm just going to power my way through. I'm totally capable. Boom, here's an obstacle, knock it out. Here's an obstacle, let's just get through it. Here's some bad guys, yeah, forget about it. Here's these guys, yeah, I know it's cool. It was just success, 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 success. But then instead of showing us that she has stuff that she gets knocked down by and then has to get back up, they just did a montage literally in the beginning and towards the end where she literally gets knocked down, knocked down, knocked down, knocked down, and then gets right back up, 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 up. And that's just, they're trying to tell you that that's who she is. She just doesn't give up. But they never actually showed her in a place where she might have given up. They never showed her, you know, so that was disappointing. So, for me, not enough sympathy for the character. It just didn't have a good character arc. Now, the next thing on this list is that there was an unexplained relationship status between Carol Danvers and Maria Rambeau. There was a couple of moments where they were like looking each other in the eyes. There was photos of them like leaning on each other, all like relationship-y. And it's like, are these two lesbians? Like, what are we supposed to be believing here? Were they lovers? Were they like, what is happening? Are they just like sisters, like best friends? Because they said they were best friends. They said that. But then they would like show these pictures and it's all romantic and stuff. And it's like, that looks lesbian to me. And then my wife was even like, are they lesbians? Is that what they're trying to say here? And it was just kind of interesting, a little bit suspect. And if that's the case, that'll bring me back down to here at the bottom. And I'll talk about that later. But that was weird. It was really cool. Like, it was good until they kind of went into this weird like phase, like where the camera shifted from them to the actual like a montage of pictures of them. And it was like, were they lovers back then? Like, I don't know why this is like, and they just didn't really explain what their relationship was in its entirety. It was really difficult to grab because there was so much confusion and vagueness. So that's all I'll say about that. Next, the aliens are just totally accepted by Maria Rambeau and her daughter. So like the Skrulls show up on Earth, right? And then Talos is trying to track down Carol Danvers. He's trying to explain to her that he needs her help, and that's why they're there. Is they've been chasing her because they know that she can help them find something towards the end. Even though this is a spoiler review, I'm still hesitant to kind of say everything, but I guess I am because it's just full of spoilers, right? So he's looking for his family, dang it. And he's going to be trying to find his people, his family, and they're in orbit somewhere with no communication. And they're cloaked, so he has no idea where they are. He thinks they're on Earth. But there's a moment where he shows up at the house, and he like shapeshifts in front of her, and then like the other person shapeshifts. And Maria Rambeau's like, who are you? And it's like, you just saw someone frickin' shapeshift. The world has never seen aliens before. And that's your reaction? And then not only that, but it's like, I understand Brie Larson not having an emotional response to that. But Maria Rambeau should have had a real response to that. And then what's worse is that the daughter then discovers that there's aliens there. And the daughter does literally nothing. Like the daughter's like, Mommy, can I come in there too? And she's like, no, you wait out here. She's like, aw. It's like, that's a little girl's reaction to finding out that there's these big green aliens that are among us. They're shapeshifters. The kid's not like startled at all. The kid's not like tremendously worried or nervous or like, mommy, please don't go. Mommy, please, no, please. Like, not freaking out at all. That, to me, is like the most unrealistic way to approach aliens on Earth I've ever seen. But kids these days, so desensitized by movies and television. Maybe she's seen one too many Marvel movies. I don't know. If I saw aliens on Earth, I would be deeply concerned. But still interested. So, yeah, I don't know. That would be, that's a whole nother video. Anyway. So aliens are totally understood by Maria and the daughter, totally not realistic. Then Maria Rambeau, this was something I told you I was going to talk about when I was up here. Now we're down here. With Maria Rambeau, she had a better emotional connection with the audience, with me, than than Carol Danvers did. And like I was saying earlier, there was a scene where Carol Danvers and Maria Rambeau are catching up for the first time since she's been back on Earth, and she was presumed dead. They thought she was dead in the plane crash, and she thought she lost her best friend, and it was really emotionally powerful for Maria Rambeau, and Brie Larson was kind of like supposed to connect there, at least a little bit. Like, I get like she doesn't really remember these things, but she's starting to see that it matters so much to Maria. But there was a moment where she was supposed to start getting emotional and like connecting, and there was just nothing. Like, I was like, I don't feel like she has any connection whatsoever. And if that's what they were going for, then that's a director problem, not Brie Larson. But nevertheless, it would have helped the story to have had that, regardless of whether or not it was Brie's fault or the director's fault, the writer's fault, whatever. There should have been a connection at that point. There should have been something, because there was no emotional connection with Brie Larson's Captain Marvel at any point in the rest of the movie, other than humor, which was good. But there needs to be something. You got to have some sort of connection, some sort of emotional investment in the character in order to care at all. So that was disappointing. I was shocked to walk out of the film and be like, literally everyone outacted Brie Larson. Not outacted. I won't say outacted, but I had a stronger connection with almost any other character, including Phil Coulson, who was in the movie for like 3 shots, than I did with Captain Marvel. And that was hard to comprehend. Even after I had seen the film, I was like, dang, like, I literally didn't connect with the hero. I connected with all of the supporting characters except the main character. That hasn't happened yet in the MCU for me, but it has now. So that was one thing that was bad, very bad. Not a good thing. Although I will say everyone else was so good that I still give the movie a 7 out of 10, because it was a lot of fun. It was a really good movie, fun to watch. I'm definitely going to go see it again. But it's sad when the main character, that's the title character, is the least connected person, least emotionally invested person in the film. That's not easy to appreciate. So I'll say that. Then after that, my wife and I got to talking, and we were talking about the film, and Brie Larson does not convey strength. Brie Larson, when you see her in the movie, she has like a sass to her, kind of like a spunkiness, which is good because it allows her humor to play through really, really well with Samuel L. Jackson. And that works tremendously, tremendously well. But on her own, in all the scenes where she's not with Sam Jackson or not with, like, I don't know, Ben Mendelsohn or someone that's really, really good, it's hard because she doesn't convey strength, and that's how they played her the entire time. There wasn't one real true moment where you felt like that character was vulnerable. There was like the flashback sequences where she's trying to hold the rope, and then she's trying to swing to the other one. They showed it in the trailer, and she falls and she boom, and then she just gets right back up with this like pose, like, yes, I'm getting back up because that's what I do. I'm the never quitter. And it's like, I can appreciate what they're trying to say here. I just didn't connect with it. And no, I don't think very many people did, because Brie Larson didn't convey that strength that I think needed to be there. Now, I know, like, I don't just mean physical, like brawn or anything. I mean, like, she doesn't seem like an emotionally strong person. She seems very, like, sassy. She seems very spunky. Maybe opinionated, but she doesn't seem like she carries the same strength that, like, Scarlett, for instance. And I'm not just trying to compare it to like I don't know, Pretty Girls or whatever, but like Scarlett Johansson conveyed strength. She conveyed, like, when you see her like striking her pose, you believe that she could beat someone up. You know, like for even just for a moment, for like a second, you're like, dang, she looks powerful there. Like, that's a superhero stance pose. She has that look. She's got that build. And then you know, like, or Catherine Winnick from Vikings, same thing. You know, still feminine, still ladylike, but she has that strength. She has that power, that on-screen presence. And I don't think Brie Larson had that. That was something I was looking for, and I did not feel. I don't know what it was about it. It just didn't feel that. And my wife was telling me the same thing. She's the one that kind of started that conversation. And it was difficult for me, but I ended up, like, after seeing the film, it's like you couldn't really deny it. It's like she didn't really have that strength. That's a on-screen presence that every superhero has. She didn't have it, and that was something that was a bummer. So that I will say. Now, I did like Brie Larson as the character, but I didn't love Brie Larson as the character. So I think that when you walk out of a film and you're like, she did okay, but this other person would have been good too, that to me says that they didn't do a good enough job. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to say that Brie Larson was the weakness in the film, which is a bummer. Okay, so that's the last thing I'm going to say about the bad. Now, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the confusing. So this is where I'm going to start to trickle off into some other stuff that maybe you guys have stuck around. I saved this for the end. That way you guys don't have to be burdened by all of the rambling and everything. I wanted to give you guys the best review that I could without actually reading a script. But I will have to kind of just poke at my notes a little bit here. So first up, things that are confusing, right? So the eye. We know Sam Jackson, Nick Fury lost an eye. He wears the eye patch. In Winter Soldier, he's like, last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye. He takes off the thing and it's got the scratches. Most people are like, was that a Skrull? What was that? You know? And it ended up being Goose the cat. Now, I laughed when I saw that, and everyone in the theater laughed. I heard it. I heard everyone laugh. But when you get out of the theater and you check online, let me balance my camera real quick. There we go. When you check online, everyone's like 10 things that Captain Marvel did wrong or whatever, and then it's like, you know, bummers or what I hate about Captain Marvel, and then you see people usually mention the eye. And it's a silly thing that isn't actually, it's not something that's determined in the MCU. So for them to give it a something is kind of nice. It made for a good joke and it was funny. But it's also a little bit confusing because is he talking, when Nick Fury says in was the Winter Soldier, he's like, last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye. Is he specifically talking about the cat, or was he just hyping to build up for, you know, like suspense or whatever? Or does he just tell people that because he's a spy and his like world is built on lies? There, you know, like what was his name? Hulk said in Avengers 1. He's like, he's a spy. Nick Fury's a spy. His secrets have secrets. You know, that was one of the lines that they said. And I think that it raises a lot more questions about it because, yes, we saw the eye get scratched. Yes, we saw it get infected. And then, you know, towards the end, he's got the bandage and whatever. But at the same time, it is curious. Is there, you know, was it just lies that he was telling Captain America to try to like make him see his point as an analogy? Or was he just being literal and saying, actually referencing the cat? Which is, it's funny. It's not a huge confusion, but that raises a couple of questions for me. So maybe you guys were asking those questions too. Who knows? So the next thing I want to talk about is, again, Carol and Maria. Are they BFFs like they said they were? Or did they have that like little montage of like when they pan to the photos, the photo albums of them together and like leaning on each other and stuff? Are they best friends or are they like lovers? What was that all about? Because to me, that seemed very, very suspect. And I think that if we're gonna get sequels, then that's something that should probably be addressed. But it, I think, won't, because of another kind of theory I have that is spurred on by the confusion of Captain Marvel. So let me just keep going. The next one after the like relationship status is sequels. Let's talk about sequels, because this film takes place in the 90s, right? So we're talking about the 90s, we're talking about the early 2000s, we're talking about 2010 to now. That's basically 3 decades, right? There is a lot that happens between the end of Captain Marvel and the beginning of Avengers Endgame, right? if you guys stuck around for the after credits, you already know that and you probably already put 2 and 2 together anyway. Captain Marvel is going to be in Endgame. The end credit scene for Captain Marvel was her showing up to the Avengers that are remaining in New York, and she basically gets paged by the pager that Nick Fury left behind. It takes a little bit, but she gets to Earth, and she's like, "Where's Nick?" Or like, "Where's Fury?" You know, and so sequels need to then determine, are they going to be in this gigantic gap between Captain Marvel in the 90s. She leaves to help the Skrulls find their long lost world using the power of the Space Stone. So, or the Tesseract, really. And so, if she's going to go and help guide them, actually, what she did was she flew off into space and they followed her. But nevertheless, that was what they used to kind of get around there. And then the cat eats the Tesseract. But she helps them. So she's on this gigantic quest to help the Skrulls. And she's out there for 30 years? And now she's back and she hasn't aged a day. What the heck? You know what I mean? Like, she's like, something's got to give. I think either we're going to see her sequel take place in that in-between years, maybe on the missions with the Skrulls, and I'll get into why I think that. But I think that we'll either get a sequel that takes place helping the Skrulls in the Skrull homeworld, which honestly I'd love to see because Ben Mendelsohn was my favorite part of the film. And I think that the Skrulls would be a great story, and it'd be a nice bridge for when the Fantastic Four finally join the MCU once this Disney deal closes officially. So it's already bought. They already bought Fox, but there's legalities that need to be sifted through so that they can not be a total monopoly over all these different things like the news and the sports and everything that's going to be in and out of the deal buying Fox. Everything has to be sifted through. So until the last page is signed, they can't make a move on Fantastic Four or Super Skrull, but they can utilize the Skrulls in general. So it would be kind of cool to get more stories that keep the Skrulls alive in the MCU, basically for us, the viewership. And then once the Fantastic Four come in, you could do Super Skrull. That would be really, really cool. So, and there's more to the Super Skrull that I want to talk about too. But nonetheless, that was very, very confusing. Should they keep the story going forward after Endgame? Like once Endgame happens, whatever happens in Endgame, should Captain Marvel get a sequel after that, or should her stories be told before Endgame? Because obviously they're not trying to have a one and done with Captain Marvel. They probably want that to keep going. I know that this is the only film that's really set as kind of more of a flashback than anything else, other than Captain America 1. But this is still her origin, and so all the other films have then taken place in current continuity timeline, pushing the stories forward and forward in time. So, yeah, that's, pushing the stories forward in time. That's something that I think would be good. And I'm kind of at a coin toss there, honestly. I don't really personally need Captain Marvel's stories to go forward. I want everyone else's stories to go forward, honestly. But if her stories don't go forward, if they're in that gap between the 90s, Captain Marvel #1, and then somewhere between then and Endgame, or Avengers 1, that would also be really good for me. I would really like to see the Skrulls get set up in a good way where maybe more takes place, more transpires, and the Skrulls reject what Talos has seen, and they still say, no, we still don't accept that the Kree, are going to back off, or maybe the war just continues or whatever. That kind of stuff would be awesome for me. So I think that would be cool. It's confusing, but let me know what you guys think about that. Do you think that Captain Marvel stories should take place after Endgame ongoing, or should they be filling that 30-year gap of stories and missions that she was clearly on in outer space? So that was one thing that's confusing about that. Next after that, I will say Marvel, this was the biggest bummer. This should have been in the bad for me, honestly. This should have been in the bad. But I put it in the confusing because it raises questions, right? So Captain Marvel was completely wasted, completely, utterly, just tarnished. And the bummer here was that Annette Bening did a good job as the Kree scientist. She also she was more than a Kree scientist. She was actually the face that Carol Danvers saw as the what's it called? The Supreme Intelligence. And with the Supreme Intelligence, in this movie, they make it so that it reveals itself to you as whatever you're familiar with. And they use that as kind of like a plot point to help tie her back to Earth and help her find her way, remembering things, so she could do research and find a face that she knows. They did that on purpose. And that's fine. I was totally cool with them changing the original Supreme Intelligence so that it's like an AI that appears as whatever you need it to be for you. That was okay. I'm totally fine with that. But what I'm not fine with is what they did to Mar-Vell. So Captain Mar-Vell, I want to make sure I'm getting all of this correct for you guys. Captain Mar-Vell was known as Dr. Walter Lawson. And they had what's her name? I just forgot her name. Annette Bening. She played, I forget what the first name was, but the same name, Lawson. So they had her play Dr. Lawson, and it was the same idea, but they gender bent this character to be Annette Bening on Earth, so that it would be another girl. So it was like a girl Air Force leader or whatever, and then it would be, you know, Maria Rambeau and Carol Danvers, all girls doing this space program for I was like NASA and the Air Force or whatever, and she was using the alien technology to power the Kree spaceship, and it was sending out a beacon, and that's how the aliens found her. And it was so frustrating. I really liked Annette Bening, and I liked her in the role. I did not like that they said that her actual Kree name was Mar-Vell, because that's inaccurate. They gender bent the character, and they took away so much character potential. And I'm going to explain what I mean. So Captain Mar-Vell was someone that everybody wanted to see at some point or another eventually in the MCU. That will not happen ever anymore. That's not going to, because Mar-Vell dies. And so Mar-Vell, who is not Captain Mar-Vell, but is just Mar-Vell the Kree, a female scientist from the Kree that departs, and she's trying to help the Skrulls, and like she just becomes this kind of like second rate. Could have been anybody. They could have named her anything they wanted to, but they didn't. They went with Captain Mar-Vell, basically just to tell the fans, we are never going to do Captain Mar-Vell in the MCU. It's not going to happen. And what I don't know if Marvel had anticipated, or maybe they said they don't want to do or something like that, but this ties me more into say like what's it called, the Super Skrull. When I had mentioned the Super Skrull, he has a very specific storyline in the Secret Invasion. It's where he kidnaps the Captain Mar-Vell, the man, and takes him back to I think it was the Skrull home planet. So Captain Mar-Vell is a Kree. He takes Super Skrull takes Captain Mar-Vell, a Kree, back to the Skrull homeworld, and he puts him in prison. But I guess Captain Mar-Vell, the man, had an affair or a relationship with the Skrull princess, I think it was. Let me see if I can pull this up. Yeah. So I'll just read it for you here. During the Kree-Skrull War, Super Skrull kidnapped Captain Mar-Vell and the man, Quicksilver, and Scarlet Witch, and presented them to the Skrull Emperor. While being imprisoned, Captain Mar-Vell and the Emperor's daughter, Princess Anel, had a brief affair, and she conceived a child. Fearing for his safety, Anel sent the child away with her nursemaid immediately after his birth. The servant took the child to Earth and raised her, to be raised by his father. But after arriving on Earth, she learned that Captain Mar-Vell had died. And Miss Altman decided to raise the child as her own and posed as the single mother working in real estate, and named her child Theodore Teddy Rufus Altman, who is the Hulkling from the Young Avengers. He's a half Kree, half Skrull. He can shapeshift because he's Skrull, but he takes the form of whatever he wants. And because he's Kree and Skrull, he has ridiculous super strength. So, ability to shapeshift, super strength. He's a total boss. and he is the son of Captain Marvel, and then also the son of a Skrull princess, Princess Anel. And that's no longer possible because there is no male Captain Marvel. So that is not going to happen. And the Young Avengers, I mean, they could write it in like maybe it's a Skrull prince instead, if you gender bend, and then have it be Captain Marvel, Brie Larson's character, and a Skrull fall in love, and then they have Hulkling. That could happen. That could be a thing. But again, it's twofold, because now we not only do we not get the actual story for a potential future character, which would be a cool character, but also you'd be missing out on the actual Captain Marvel. Now, I know that they're probably killing off this character because Captain Marvel passes the torch to Captain Marvel, and then Captain Marvel takes the place once Marvel is done and dead. But it still sucks that we won't even get that character. We won't get that flashback. He wasn't what he should have been to her, the mentor and all that stuff. Instead, we got this female Dr. Lawson who was a Kree. I mean, cool, she's a Kree, but that's so lame in comparison, you know? That should have been something they did. They should have allowed it to be Captain Marvel and then have him pass the torch. Even if he didn't get the costume, that would have been a lot sweeter, especially as a fan. So that's tough. That's really, really tough to swallow. Now, that's pretty much the gist of what I had. I mean, there was a lot that was good in this film, and I didn't spend a lot of time on it. I think I spent 20 minutes, actually. That is a lot of time. But I didn't spend a ton of time. There's a lot good with this film. Again, I give this film a 7 out of 10. It was really good. Great supporting cast. It was a lot of fun. There was difficulties with the cinematics in some of the fight scenes. There was difficulty with connecting to the main character because they didn't write in much of a story arc for her. Brie Larson was underwhelming as a main character, but had really good chemistry with the supporting cast. So you guys are going to see it. You'll be able to give your own reviews. You'll be able to have your own opinions, your own appreciations for this film. Maybe you'll love it. Maybe you'll hate this film. I want you guys to let me know down below what you guys think about Captain Marvel and what you guys think about my assessment of the film and my thoughts, my speculations, and then my questions, my confusion after seeing the film. Let me know if you guys share any of that. Also, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to give this video a like by clicking the thumbs up button. Also, subscribe if you haven't already. Really appreciate you guys subscribing. I just passed 200 subscriptions, which is huge. I'm so grateful for that. And I really appreciate you guys very, very much. Turn on notifications so you can be alerted right away when I go live next time. That way you don't miss a thing. And again, I just want to say thank you. You guys are the best. I hope you guys enjoy the film. If you haven't seen it and you watched this first, you're a bold one. But if you did see it and you've seen this now, comment down below. I want to talk with you guys about this film. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say and what's your favorite moment in the film. Anyway, thanks guys for watching. You guys stay tuned for more right here on The Stuff of Legend.